As a father of 3 boys, I often find myself reflecting on how my children perceive me. Have I embodied godliness in my actions and deeds? Do I reflect the fatherly characteristics of God as portrayed in Jesus' parable in Luke chapter 15? Many of us are familiar with this story, especially the accounts of the 2 sons. However, there is another central figure in this parable, and that is the father. While the prodigal son is known for his wastefulness, Bishop Emeritus Dr. Robert M. Solomon offers a different perspective on the father. This father is extravagant, lavishly bestowing love, mercy, and grace upon his children. Join him as he talks about the father from Luke chapter 15, verses 11 to 32.
A few days ago, I was in the East Coast Park with my wife, and I saw a father and son, and they were running along the beach, having a great time. Father ran, looked back at his son, called him, and the son delightfully squealed and ran after the father. And they were doing this up and down the beach. And I thought, wow, this is a beautiful picture of an unhurried father. Because usually you see fathers hurrying, pulling their sons, come along, come along. But here, a sheer joy of just finding time together to be a father to his son. And I was so encouraged to see this happen in Singapore when we are so busy and so harassed and so full of burdens, and our fascination is with speed, the speed of life. And here was a young man who found it important to give time to his son. And I'm sure that son would remember that kind of time with his father. And as we think about fathering, this particular parable that Jesus told can teach us a thing or two about fathering. Now, the Lord Jesus told this story in verse 11. There was a man who had 2 sons. That's a nice way of starting a story. And Jesus was very good at that. There was a man. Many of his parables begin like that. There was a man. And here there was a man with 2 sons. Now, most often, our focus is on the second son, because he's called the prodigal son. The prodigal son has a lot to teach us, because many of us, all of us, are like prodigals in our relationship with God. Then there are others who, quite rightly, focus on the older son. In terms of interpreting this story, you have to ask the context. What's the context of this story? The context was the criticism of Jesus by the Pharisees and the religious teachers. They were criticizing him for getting too close with sinners, for enjoying meals with them and so on. So they were finding fault with Jesus. And Jesus told this story about a father who celebrated the return of his prodigal son. And then he told about the older son who refused to go in and to join the celebration. And obviously he was using this story to speak to the ones who were criticizing him. Basically saying, you Pharisees are just like the older son. You pretend to be close to the Father, but in your heart you are so far from your Father in heaven. That's the kind of thing that Jesus was trying to show to these critics. So the older son is also to be a focus. But I want to suggest that it's good to also focus on the father. In this story, we want to look at the father and see what we can learn from the father. Now, though this story is a lengthy narrative, there are some missing pieces we can only try to guess. Who are the ones missing in this story? The mother is missing. So why is the mother missing? We don't know. But the key point is that the father is present. That's the main thing. The father is present throughout this story. Even when the second son went astray, and was far from his father, the father was never far from him. Why? Because in his lowest moment, he was thinking of his father. He was thinking, Father's house, so much better. In my father's house, all the servants have it good. Look at me. I'm in the most miserable of conditions. So the father somehow was never too far away from his son, even though the son went far away from the father. So sometimes, our relationship with our children, though they go far from us, we are not far from them. If we had made an impact in their lives, if we had put in things that will remain a blessing to them. So the Father is present throughout this story.